Well, welcome everybody to Amazingly True Tales. This is our 8th annual Story Slam here at Grant. And my name is Paige Battle. I'm the teacher librarian here at Grant. And I want to thank our students, our storyteller students, and our students here in the audience, judges, teachers, and audience members for coming out tonight in support of celebration and storytelling. This is an art form that has been studied by brain scientists who found, and I just learned this today, they found that as you hear a story unfold, your brain waves actually start to synchronize with those of the storyteller. When the brain activity was recorded in 2 people as one person told a story and the other listened, the scientists found that the greater the listener's comprehension, the more closely the brainwave patterns mirrored those of the storyteller. So, tonight we are here for a live storytelling competition. And this all got started back in 2015 when one of our judges could tell you that their student here at Grant got to participate in a workshop that was put on by the Moth Radio Hour. And we were so charmed, Jennifer Sochua, my library assistant, and I, we were so charmed by this event that we thought we have to keep this going. And so the next year, we started our first Story Slam event here at Grant. That first year that we had the Moth here, there were 8 storytellers, and we really felt like that was the pinnacle. 8 students that came out to share a story. But tonight, y'all have broken that record. There are 9 storytellers here. Try not to cry tonight, but some of y'all probably heard me say, when we started second semester just last week, at the beginning of the week, I looked at Jennifer and said, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off. I just haven't had students really come up and talk about this. And ever the optimist, Mrs. Sochua said, it's all going to be okay, it'll work out. And sure enough, here you are. I'm so tickled that y'all are here. So, here's how this event works. If you have not been here before, our storytellers have 5 minutes to share a story that is real and true, and it is something that has happened in their lives, and it needs to be based around the theme for this year's event. And this year we chose the theme treasure. So, at the 5-minute mark, if any of you were to get there, you are going to hear a gentle tone. Okay. So, if you hear that, you'll know you have 1 minute to bring your story to a close. And if you were to get to 6 minutes, you're going to hear that tone again. And if you get there, it's going to mean that you have a point taken off of your total. But we've all practiced, and none of that is going to happen to any of you. I know this. Okay, so speaking of points, after each story tonight, the judges that we have over here, and I'm going to be introducing you to them throughout the evening, they have the unenviable responsibility of assigning scores to each performance. And we've talked about this, the storytellers and myself, that the point isn't the point. The point is storytelling. But this is a competition, and our winner and runner-up are going on to compete at a district storytelling event. So we needed a way to figure out who those 2 people are going to be. All right? So, before we launch into the stories, I'm just going to remind everyone to take a look at your electronic devices, and other than Mrs. Sochua's Chromebook that has its volume turned up for that tone, should we need it. I'll just say, let's take out our devices, and we're going to make sure we have set them to silent. Yes.
Just a quick question. You're going to do video? So we don't need to record video if we want to.
No, and I'll give everyone at the end an opportunity to take pictures of the storytellers. But yes, thanks so much, and I will be introducing our videographer later. Thanks to PPS, we get to record this event tonight for posterity's sake.
So we can see it.
Yeah, you can relive it later. Yes. All right, so everyone had a program. The storytellers' names are listed on there in alphabetical order, but they are going to be coming up to the mic based on their name being drawn out of the fishbowl. So, as a way to bring up our storytellers, I asked them a special question before we got started. So, you might not know this, but February 9th, which is today, is National Pizza Day, one of the greatest holidays in American history. So I asked all the storytellers and the judges and our videographer and our math genius to tell me the ultimate topping to put on a pizza. So our first storyteller for the night, they told me that the topping that needed to be on pizza was just cheese. No other toppings, just cheese. So let's give it up for Deb.
Has anyone ever told you about something? Maybe it's something that you didn't even want, but the way that they described it just made it sound like this amazing treasure, like the greatest thing in the world. But then, they just took it from you, like that. Well, that happened to me. I was in London for winter break, and it was a week-long trip. On the last day, right before we went back to Portland, my family and I decided to go on a trip by train out of the city and to see our friend Mark. Now, Mark and his entire family are vegans. That's important. Remember that for later. And another thing to remember is that this was happening during the train strike. I know, two great words to hear before going on a train trip. Anyways, I was awoken freezing 6 a.m. morning, shuttled on the tube to the equally freezing train station, and waited for 4 hours before our train came at 10. Got on the train, we got to the station, we got in Mark's Tesla, and he took us to this little Indian restaurant. He highly recommended it, and as he was getting enough food to feed an army, and of course he was talking to the man behind the counter, somebody else, and us, talking at more like, but he was like, oh, let's get some of these. I can't have them because I'm vegan and they're milk-based, but what he was describing were barfi, which is this Indian dessert, again, milk-based, and it was all these different colors, and how he described it made it seem like ambrosia straight from Mount Olympus. And so he boxed them up, and we walked back to the Tesla. He gave us each a samosa to tide us over for lunch. We took the drive to his house. He kept accelerating, so occasionally we just go. And we got to his house, had lunch, and we were shuttled off to an hour-long hike in the cold in the mud. Now, I was dressed so cute. I had like a skirt on, knee-high socks, a really cute sweatshirt. I was not dressed for the day. But we came back after this, I don't even know how to describe it, this hike. And we got back and we were shuttled once more into Mark's Tesla, and we were shuttled back to the train station, and we went back on the train, and we went back on the tube, and we got back to the flat, not a barfie in sight. They were vegan, if you remember. They couldn't even have them. So, but don't worry, they did give us something. A cold that put everyone in my family, myself, my mother, and my father out of commission for the entire month of June.
Deb, I so want to try that dessert now that you described. Did you ever get to taste one or no?
No.
They were just left at Mark's flat in London, outside of London.
Yeah.
So sad. All right, so while our judges are writing down their scores, I'm going to, throughout the evening, let you know a little bit about the people on our judging panel. And in your program, we have their biographies. But they too were asked what was the ultimate pizza topping that they could have. And our first judge, Lyda Ben, had the response that every and all pizza toppings are welcome. However, if Lyda ever finds herself at a buffet that includes an array of pizzas, Lyda would choose the slice from the supreme pizza. Green peppers, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms. More is better. Highly agree. That was my go-to, the Pizza Hut Supreme Pizza when I was growing up. That was what I loved. All right. Our next storyteller, when asked about the perfect pizza topping, had my heart when she said black olives. So let's welcome to the microphone, Ellie.
Okay, so before I tell the story, there's two major things you need to know about me. The first is that I moved when I was 7. And this wasn't a big move or anything. It was from Knott Street to Fremont Street. And this house on Knott Street had this awful basement. It flooded about 2 inches every time it rained. It was pure concrete. It had these exposed rafters instead of like a proper ceiling. And in between the wall and where it became like dirt and mud and earth was about a 6-inch space. The other thing you need to know about me is I grew up with 2 cats. One of them was named Cinderella, and she is totally inconsequential to the story. The other one is named Tuna, and she's a little gray cat. She's about this big, and she has a little white speck on her chest. So we're moving, and moving is hectic and kind of a terrible experience, especially if you're about 7. And we're boxing everything up, and we're staying at this hotel this one weekend while our house is being shown. And my dad looks at me and he goes, "I don't know where Tuna is." And I freak out. I say, "What? You don't know where Tuna is?" And he says, "I don't know where Tuna is." So we go back to the house, and we, as clean as we could, turned it upside down looking for this cat. And then it came to this time where we had to move out of the house, and we still don't have Tuna. She's still completely missing. So we leave our info with the new buyers. And about 3 or 4 days pass as we're moving into this new house, and we get a call on this landline. I know some of you know what that is. And I pick it up, and I say, "Hutzel family, who's speaking?" And this man, he doesn't introduce himself, he says, "I need to talk to Mark." So I go and I get my dad. And my dad comes downstairs and they talk for like 5 minutes. And then my dad looks at me and he says, "They found your cat." And I am so excited. The anticipation of "is my cat okay" is just killing me. And I beg him to let us go over there immediately. And he does, because he's a great dad. So we get this wooden kind of kennel that we got from our neighbors that we move our cats in, and some cat treats, and we go over there. The thing is that it had rained the night before, so we're sitting in 2 inches of water on this, crappy basement floor with our big wooden kennel, and we're going, "Tuna, Tuna, come here, Tuna." And we sit there for almost 3 hours when all of a sudden we hear the quietest, faintest, best little meowing I have heard in my entire life. And from behind this pile of boxes and this wall comes out my cat, and she looks like a mess. And crawls out, and she hates the water, and you can just tell. And my dad goes and he snatches her up as quickly as he can, and she is screaming and whining the entire time we drive back to our new house. And we let her out of this kennel, and immediately she goes into our new basement. And now we've lived in that house for about 5 years, and she rules the entire place. She goes wherever she wants, whenever she wants, and she does anything she wants to. And in my mind, it's kind of like we unburied our little treasure.
Thanks for sharing that, Ellie. Is Tuna doing good these days? She's still with you?
Yeah, she is.
Nice to hear. Still in the basement or interacting?
She hangs out. She's okay. She hangs out with my dogs.
All right, so another judge who is on our panel tonight is Alec Chun, and he is the Hollywood librarian, youth librarian at the Hollywood branch. And Alec just started there this fall, and it's really great to have Alec as a community partner. I've been so happy that they finally got another youth librarian at Hollywood because that position had been vacant for a while. And when I asked Alec, pizza, what topping would you have? There is a pizza that is called the Ruthless that comes with ricotta, mushroom, truffle oil, and sea salt. But if Alec had to choose one topping, Alec would go with cheese, and more cheese. All right, well, our third storyteller, when asked, pizza, what toppings, first said olives. And I needed some clarification, black, green, and they said it depends on the pizza. So please welcome to the microphone, Ada.
Hello. One thing about me is that when I was younger, I was a total hoarder. But it wasn't like knickknacks, newspapers, and Amazon boxes on the kitchen table. It was more draconic. I had these little treasures, these collections that I would keep in jars or baskets in my room. And they were things like cool rocks or bottle caps or funky looking twigs. And in about kindergarten, I was 5, and I had this realization. I needed to collect my dad's reading glasses. Now, I set up a whole box for this. It was a shoe box, and I decorated in all my favorite stickers, and I put it under my bed in preparation. Now, my dad's a very forgetful person, so these like dollar store reading glasses, he would lose them all the time. So I would check everything. I checked baskets, I checked drawers, I checked cupboards, and I amassed a pretty good collection. But once I had ran out of moments where he was checking all his pockets and his head, seeing if he had lost his reading glasses, I realized that I needed to steal directly from the source. So whenever he had gone up to go to the bathroom when he was reading, he would leave his reading glasses behind, right in his book. And I would walk right into the living room and snatch them up. Put them in my little box. And I amassed quite the collection. And I was obsessed. I would check it every night before I went to sleep. Oops, kick my little legs and look at all my glasses. And before my dad could go clinically insane because all his glasses were going missing, he had found my box. It was while I was at school. Now, being a 5-year-old, I could not clean my own room. Well, I could tidy, but I couldn't vacuum because vacuum's yay high, 5-year-old's yay high. So he would vacuum my room about once a week. Now, one time when he was vacuuming my room, he was vacuuming under the bed, and he ran right into that box. Took it out, and I imagine he was thinking, why has my 5-year-old daughter been collecting my glasses? So I come home from school that day, and the box is on the counter, my little treasure box. And you so he asked me, why have you been collecting my reading glasses? And I really don't have an answer. I just said something like, well, because they're collectible. And I remember he gives me, like, he's so dumbfounded, so he just gives me this, like, 5-year-old punishment of no desserts for a week, and kind of leaves me to it. So I stopped collecting physical things, and for a while I didn't collect anything at all. And now I've kind of gone back into the tendency of hoarding, but it's all digital. I'll like have photo albums for all my favorite things. I'll have a photo album for, oh, food that looks like something cool, or hearts I see during the day, or stars. So I've never really changed. I'm still a bit of a hoarder.
I'm going over to retrieve my reading glasses. Ada has not seen yet. I just realized, Frank, can you hear us okay through that? And can everybody else hear okay? All right. With this microphone, y'all know, I never know, is it working, is it not? I don't know that it's on, but I feel like we're in an intimate enough setting, and it's just our prop for telling the story, right?
They're in the ceiling.
And can y'all hear okay? Yeah, we're all okay. All right.
You can still turn it on.
No, but now I'm like, I don't want to upset the apple cart.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, another one of our judges tonight is Allison Hallett. And we share a love of Mama Lil's peppers on our pizza. I like to add some sausage, Allison. I don't know. Are you just not opposed? All right. So we thank her for being here. The next storyteller, when I asked them, what would you have on your pizza? They said, just cheese. And again, I wanted some clarification, just cheese. And then they admitted, well, I do like a combination of cheeses. So please put your hands together for this cheese connoisseur, Tessa.
The cold wind whipped through my hair as the rain poured down on my face, and in that moment I accepted my fate. I was a goner. From 4 to 13, I was in something called the Japanese Immersion Program. And in that program, in 5th and 8th grade, we had a trip to Japan. And unfortunately, in 8th grade, I had to miss out on it because COVID shut down all flights. But I did get to go on the 5th grade Japan trip, and that's where this story takes place. It was a rainy day, and we were driving to somewhere called Fuji-Q Highlands, which was an amusement park that was themed like Fuji Mountain. And since it was raining, a lot of the big rides were like shut down, and I was completely fine with that. And we got to the park, and we started going on some of the kiddie rides. We were having a great time until one of the chaperones named Josh started asking around if anybody wanted to go on a big ride with him. And people declined his offers because like everybody was terrified of the big rides. Now there's two things to note. First thing is that this wasn't any normal amusement park. This amusement park was full of world record breaking rides. And second thing is I have always been terrified of the big rides. People at school would always brag about going on the Screaming Eagle or like the roller coaster at Oaks Park. And I was always super jealous because I never had the confidence to go on a ride like that. So when Josh came up to me, I accepted his offer to go on a big ride. And we talked it over, and we agreed to go on the fastest roller coaster in the world. Because my logic is it would be over quickly. And we got in line, we were waiting for a while, and we were almost to the front of the line, and that's when I heard over the loudspeaker that that ride had closed down because of the rain. And Josh still wanted to go on a ride, so we walked over to a different line, and I didn't really know what was going on. I was 10, everything was in Japanese. We waited in the line for a while until I saw the one sign in English that read, steepest roller coaster in the world with a 121-degree drop. And I was in denial. I was like, this is not happening. I was coming up with reasons in my head why it could not happen. I was like, I'm too young, I'm too small. Until we almost got to the front of the line, and I saw this little kid saunter up to the front, and they let him on. And I was just like, oh no. So we finally got to the front of the line. I was still in denial. And they let me on, and we put our stuff away in the lockers, and we got on the ride. And it started in this dark tunnel, so I wasn't really like anxious about what was coming next because I couldn't see anything. And that's where the first corkscrew was. And that was fun. I was having a good time. There was loop-de-loops. It was a good time until we got to the base of the big drop. So this drop went vertical up to the heavens, went down, went in, and out. And when we started going up vertically, I started sobbing violently. And I was holding on to Josh's arm for dear life, and I was yelling, it was his fault, he peer pressured me into this. And I was just like insulting this guy, and I feel so bad because he was just like somebody's dad trying to like make these kids have a fun time. Like, I'm just insulting him. And we finally got to the top, and he was like, okay, you gotta let go of my arm now and hold on. I was like, okay. And then the ride kind of pranked you, and before it sent you over, it kind of like stopped. And that's where it got the picture. And I have this picture, and in the picture, I have this stoic expression on my face, and I have my hairs over my eyes, and I just accepted my fate. We went down the drop, and a few loop-de-loops later, the ride was over. I was kind of manically laughing by the end, and I think all in all, it was a fun experience, and I still have the map, the ticket, and the picture to this day to remember my treasured memory.
Thanks for that, Tessa. I'm kind of jealous. I like riding roller coasters, and I wish I could have been at that one in Japan with you. Okay, another judge we have is someone who's familiar to a lot of us here at Grant. Deirdre Harms worked in our counseling department for a long time. She and I have a shared love for sausage on top of our pizza. We just need to combine with Allison, and then we'll have the perfect pizza, the bells and the sausage. So thank you for that. Okay, for our next storyteller, when asked what was the topping she would want on her pizza, we've heard it several times tonight, it's very popular. Cheese. Molly, come on up to the microphone.
Hello. Okay, so my story is, you have to imagine the greatest crime, the just perfect crime. You should get away with perfectly. So me and my 3 friends, we were in middle school, and because of the fact that our middle school was really small, there was only one science teacher per grade. So we had the science teacher, and he was very particular. We were only allowed to use blue or black pens in our notebook. If we made a mistake, we had to strike a line through it, and we couldn't like scribble it out. Points would be taken off if we did that, because he checked our notebooks to make sure that we wrote down verbatim what the textbook said, because that's how his teaching style was. And you might be like, oh, well, you know, like, that's reasonable, I guess. Like, you want to make sure that your students are actually writing things in the notebook. But it's like, because he was also a person who demonstrated a lot of favoritism, we were, like, in this class, and my friends, who he, like, didn't like as much, he would just, like, take off points from their notebook checks arbitrarily and, like, give like me notebook check points, because even though I wrote in pencil, which is just like so it wasn't really about actually fulfilling his standards. It was just sort of about, you know, like, it was just about whether he liked you or not. So me and my friends, in addition to that, he was also very strict about bathroom passes and like letting people use the bathroom or go get water. And so, like, you know, we were like, hey, can we use the bathroom during the middle of class? And like when we were doing something kind of inconsequential, and he'd just be like, no, because he didn't like you. And it was just like, why? You know? And then like in another incident, somebody was like, can I get water? And he was like, no. And then he like picks up his water bottle and he drinks some water and he's like, this tastes so good. Like literally, it was ridiculous. Like you'd be like, this sounds fake, but like he actually just did that, and for no reason. Like, and I don't know. It was just like a horrible class, and me and my friends were fed up. And sort of like the final straw for us was when somebody in one of my class, or in his class, in a different period than what I was in, which this was like his least favorite period. So like the problem period, or like this is where all the troublemaker kids were, but he didn't like. And basically, this girl was chewing on the end of a pen, and the pen, like the ink part, explodes in her mouth. And she says, and she's like, can I go get water to like rinse my mouth out? And he's like, no. And you might be like, oh, well, it's a science classroom, so it doesn't have like drinking fountains and like you know, the sinks and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, it did, but also our school is one of the schools that had lead in the pipe, so that water is not safe to put in your mouth. So like the only option was to leave the classroom and go get like water from the water cooler, and he just said like no. So her options were either like leave the classroom and like disobey him and probably get in trouble, like swallow the ink, or put like a bottle of lead in it in your mouth, which is just like there are no good options here. And so like me and my friends were just like, this is ridiculous. And so what we did is we got together after school at one of my friends' houses. We were sitting like in their family room, and we had like the couch was here, and there was like the coffee table, and so like we're sort of sitting on the floor. And our original idea was kind of absurd. We were going to cut letters out of magazines to write a letter like to try to preserve our anonymity. But we were like, that's a little bit too serial killer. So then we were like, okay, I have a better idea. And like, but this was also after we had actually like started gluing things to the paper. We were like cutting out letters and things like that. We were like actually going through this. It had taken like 2 hours, and we were like, this is like not working. Like this is a bad idea. Like we were like, oh, well, we'll just do it as a joke for us to keep. But then like we were like, no. And so we get out one of my friend's Chromebooks, and bear in mind, this is on her school account. We write this letter to my teacher, and we're like, please let us use the bathroom when we ask you to, and let us get water, and like, can we do some of the more interesting experiments from the textbook instead of just doing like literally verbatim reading like role plays where we're pretending to be like scientists in a situation, pretending like just like explain like paragraphs of text, and because it's like that was the type of thing that we did on like a weekly basis, and it was boring. And so we just write this like letter, and we were like, yeah, this is pretty diplomatic. Like we're not going to tell him, like we're not going to sign the letter because that would be a little bit like, you know, what if he thinks it's really mean? But we're like we're just voicing our complaints and trying to like get our teacher to treat us fairly and stuff like that. And so one of my friends puts it on top of the turn-in box because it was like labeled, so there's like one sort of slot per period, and we just put it on top. And then he finds it, and then the next day in class, in their class, not my class, he yells at them for an entire 45-minute period about how rude and like out of line that letter was, and I was just astonished. I was like, but we were just asking for like reasonable stuff, and like I don't know, like he didn't even mention it to most of the other classes, and you know, I mentioned we did this on a school account, but we never got in trouble because I think he was too embarrassed by like what the letter was saying to actually like go to the admins or like to the principal of the school to like be like, hey, these students did this bad thing, can you help me figure out who it was? And so he just complains, and like he never suspected that it was me, and like he never I think he did suspect that it was some of my friends that were in that 7th period class, but like I was just like, I felt like I got away with murder. Like I was like one of his favorite students, or like one of the students that he liked, and I don't know, I never got caught. So that is my most treasured memory from middle school. Which is kind of miserable.
I don't know if I told the name. I was so caught up in Molly's story because middle school, whoo, it brought back some memories of a science teacher I had, Molly, and I got detention for the act of rolling my eyes. Yeah, she was not having that from me. Yeah. Okay, so our next person I'm going to introduce you to is Stuart Levy. And on his pizza, he prefers mushroom, sausage, olives, and spicy peppers.
And they actually were on the little thing that we can name random.
Oh, there we go. That is the spicy pepper that goes on there. Okay, well, the next storyteller who's coming up also likes a lot of toppings on his pizza, specifically Canadian bacon, pineapple, pepperoni, and meatball. So welcome up to the microphone, Kai.
Thank you. In addition to those pizza toppings that I love music. I always have. When I was a toddler, I would sing in my room in the morning, and when I was 5, I started playing guitar, and I haven't stopped. When I was in 7th grade, I was in choir for a quarter, and I loved singing while playing guitar. And while it was a disruptive environment, to say the least, I learned a lot and really enjoyed singing with other people. When it came time for the concert, I sang the songs that I learned, and I had a great time. When it came time for forecasting for my 9th grade electives, I chose Art Foundations and Intro to Journalism, 2 I had wanted to do for a while. And I remembered back to my 7th grade choir experience and put men's ensemble on my alternates. Mr. Eisman, our lovely choir director, emails those who did as I did, and he persuaded me with a long list of good things that would come in choir if I did it. And I'm really glad I did, because I came to love choral music and singing with other people at Grant. And when it came time for the spring choir concert, the final performance of the year, I was doing my homework, namely a big English project which I wanted to do well on, and learning my other songs. I had memorized most of them, save for one, No Time, a 16-page campfire song that I would sing with my classmates and the tenors and basses and acapella. Now, No Time was a great description of my situation, because I had memorized all my other songs, save for that one, because I was working on homework and doing other stuff. And as it drew nearer and nearer, June 1st, the spring concert, I was running out of time, and I thought this would be bad, that I didn't have it memorized. I thought it would ruin the performance, and I would feel very bad. But I had nothing to worry about, because I had realized that the other guys would help me and I would help them. So on the day of the concert, in the afternoon, I listened to the recordings a couple times, had dinner, got in my concert dress, and walked over to Ray. On the way there, it was still sunny, and I was in a great mood, reflecting on my first year in choir and the great experiences, people, and lessons I had learned and met. So when I got into the choir room, we warmed up and got ready to go on stage. And in the auditorium, I sang Salute Hodie, a Latin song, Sing My Child, Earth Angel, and then I got ready to sing No Time. And it turned out great. We did a really good job. The audience loved it, and we got a lot of clapping. And then, as it was wrapping up, the seniors were being awarded and mentioned, and I was doing great and feeling great. And we sang Calling My Children Home, our last finale song, which I really loved singing because it was about someone who was missing their children and was singing about them in a great way. And after the concert, I was basking in the flow of the auditorium, the lessons I learned, and the positive feelings I had, and those are my treasures.
Kai, you are such an ambassador. He was even wearing the Grand Choir shirt. Who wants to sign up for next year? They're still forecasting. Yes. Sadly, when I was in elementary school and went out for choir, I did not get selected. I did not have a Mr. Eisman, but I had my revenge a few years ago. There's this group in Portland called Rocker Chicks. And I signed up, and there are people here tonight who were at that performance and could tell you, I felt like I did a pretty good job. All right, so tonight we have a videographer, and this person has been in my life my entire career as an educator. Frank Dadula works for PPS in television services, or no, multimedia services. And on Frank's Pizza, he prefers Italian sausage. All right, and our next storyteller, they like some pizza toppings that I do not care for, but to each their own. Choosing pineapple as their pizza topping. Please welcome to the mic, Amelie.
My dad always says I have a $5,000 smile. Now, whether this fact is true or not, I'll never really know, but I will admit to have fallen victim to the orthodontics chair more than the average child, which is weird because I wouldn't consider myself very clumsy. That's my opinion. But I would like to think I'm rather coordinated because I've been a ballet dancer since before I could walk. Well, I officially started classes when I was 3 at a small studio called Hollywood Dance, family owned. In addition, well, I'm still there today, obviously. I do hip-hop, more ballet, point, jazz contemporary. I even did Irish. I get to teach now too, which is wonderful, but my definite favorite part of it is getting to perform. And since I was 3, we've gotten to do 2 performances each year. We have our Christmas recital and our spring performance. Now the Christmas recital was always held before COVID at Festival of the Trees, which is this charity that usually raises money for hospitals. Now, Festival of the Trees was crowded. The stage was really creaky. The backstage smelled and it was too small, and I adored it. It was perfect. So you can imagine my surprise when I found out that when I was 8, instead of 2 performances, we would get to do 3. One at a retirement home. Yeah, less than an ideal venue for sure, but for me and my friends, this was incredible. We were practicing so hard because this was practically performing on Broadway to us. Now, looking back, I know it wasn't that big of a deal because there was like 30 seniors and just our parents, but it was perfect for us. The only thing was that the retirement home, it didn't really have a stage, and the stage that it did have was way too small, about an 1/8 of the size of our studio. And because we didn't have a tiny stage lying around in the back, what my teachers did was they brought out our movable metal ballet bars, and they set them up in a nice little square shape so we could get used to dancing in the square. And we decided that we were going to have one dress rehearsal with this square so we wouldn't look totally insane when we got up in that retirement home. And the day of the dress rehearsal, my class was going to perform first, and I was late. I was at home. My dad was still on his conference call. But once we had finished, we managed to zoom over, and I bounded out of the car and into the studio, and I got on my costume. We were doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, so we were dressed up like reindeer, antlers and all. I grabbed my bag. At this point, we were 20 minutes late. Great. So I ran into the studio, and I didn't notice that only 3 of the 4 ballet bars had been set up, the open side facing me. So I'm running in just my socks, and my dance teacher calls out, "Amelie, don't forget your jazz shoes." So I look over my shoulder, what? But by the time I turn around, all of my 4/5 self is exactly parallel with that metal bar, and whack, my teeth go right into it. Yeah, so I fall back onto the hardwood floor and I black out. I don't know how long I was out for, but once I woke up, there was my poor father picking up the pieces of my 2 front broken adult teeth into a little clear plastic baggie. I was in tears, sobbing, and not because it really hurt, but because of the feeling. And I can't really describe it, but it's kind of like gravel, very grainy up in your mouth. I hope nobody ever has to experience it. But I was so overwhelmed and overcome by this moment that honestly, I don't really remember what happened after that until about 20 minutes later when I was in the orthodontist emergency room. And to this day, there is still a very lovely picture of me dressed like Rudolph, tear-stained face with this old white guy holding up like a little plaque of fake teeth, different colors, to see which matched my smile. Very pretty picture. But you know, clearly I didn't really learn to treasure my smile enough, because not even 2 months later, I was at Grant Park by the basketball courts, again with my dad by these metal pull-up bars. And in that moment, I was like, I have to do a pull-up. Because what 4th grader doesn't want to prove themselves athletically on the pull-up bar? So I convinced him, you know, lift me up, and I'm reaching for the pull-up bar, a big smile on my face because I am going to do this, and whack! The teeth go right back in to that metal bar. And 30 minutes later, I'm in that chair again, getting now fake teeth repaired. But the only difference that time is that I wasn't in a reindeer costume.
Oh my goodness. I've heard that story 2 times now, and I just never know what to say, except I feel really bad for your father. Because I know what that's like when you're the parent and like, oh no, I'm the one that let the kid do this thing and now they're in trouble. All right, so we have with us tonight, of course, Jennifer Sochua, my lovely library assistant, who, now this is quite the combo, likes pepperoni, pineapple, and spicy honey. Very intriguing. Our next storyteller likes one of those toppings as well, and again, I don't understand pineapple. Welcome to the microphone, Nora.
All right, so my family has always been an adventurous family. So 4 years ago, my parents decided that they wanted to go teach abroad. And so we left the dark, rainy, gray city of Portland and moved to the hot, humid city of Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. And with that, we got to have amazing experiences and travel all around the world, seeing beautiful things. That was until February 2020, when COVID hit. Now, with COVID, the Vietnamese government closed all of its borders, not letting anyone in or out of the country. So we were stuck. This leads us to a year and a half later, the summer of 2021. Now, all of you guys had been vaccinated, but us, we were searching for that treasure, looking for that vaccine. But even though we were vaccinated, we still decided to travel. So we took a 2-week vacation to an island off of the coast of Vietnam called Phu Quoc. However, that 2 weeks soon went to 3 weeks, and that 3 weeks to 3 months. This was because there was a massive increase in COVID cases in Vietnam, which led the government to stop all transportation and cancel all flights. Now, being stuck on the island wasn't that bad. We got to swim in the ocean, play at the beach, play beach volleyball. But as the summer progressed, school neared, and soon I was starting my sophomore year of high school next to the beach. This leads us to September 30th, my dad's birthday, a month and a half after school started. The day started out like any normal day. I woke up, jumped in the pool, logged into my class, my mom went to the other room to go teach her 6th grade math students online, and the day was off. And then all of a sudden my dad comes out. He says, Nigel, our friend who lives at another hotel down the beach, heard from a guy, who heard from a guy, who heard from another guy, that vaccines are happening today. I gotta go check it out. So he hops on a motorbike and drives over there. I go back to my bio class, where we're learning about the carbon cycle. I'm in bio class, working away, and my mom comes out of the class, out of her room, and she says, Nora, I need you to take my class. Like, but my bio, I need you to take my class. I gotta go get vaccinated. Okay, so now I have a computer on my left and a computer on my right, one with 25 students trying to find the area of a circle in my biology class where I'm learning the carbon cycle. Like, we got this, I can do this. So my mom's running around, trying to find her passport, all the other adults running around, and finally all the adults leave. But as they leave, the other families in the resort drop 4 kids onto me. A 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 2 6-year-olds. So now I have 2 computers and 4 kids. Finally, I'm working things out. I gave up on bio, told the 6th graders to work asynchronously. I'm hanging out with the kids. That's when I get another phone call from my mom saying, Nora, get your sister and get over here. You're getting vaccinated. So I'm like, all right. So we heard all the kids to the reception, dial the taxi, tell the reception to just take care of the kids, and we're off. Now, we reached the vaccination site. It's this huge banquet hall with thousands of people around it. We're like, all right, we gotta find our parents. So we're walking around, looking for them. I call my mom on my Nokia, I say, Mom, where are you? Keep looking. I finally spot them. At the very end, sitting in these plastic stools in a huge line. So we get in line, fill out some paperwork. 2 hours later, we're at the front of the line. The parents are already inside getting vaccinated. We're like, all right, we're almost in there. That's when the nurse comes out and says, I'm really sorry, but we're gonna take our 3-hour-long lunch break now, so please come back later. And we're like, no, we have waited 2 hours. And so we just sit back down. And I guess the nurse kind of got the point, because he lives inside. So I get inside, and I'm looking around again, and I see there's hundreds of people inside in 4 different lines. So we sit back down, finish filling out all the paperwork, and we get in the first line, the blood pressure line. And as I'm standing there, I see that some people are skipping this line. I'm like, all right, that's okay. Then my mom shows up again and says, Nora, skip this line. We don't want to get high blood pressure and get out of here. So I skip that line, and we get into the next line. And so we get to the end of the next line. It's a paperwork line. They say, have you had COVID, any health issues? No. Move on to the next line, vaccination line. Soon, I have a needle being jabbed into me, and I'm vaccinated. Oh. So they hand us back our paperwork, and they send us into the last line. The last line, you give them your paperwork and your passport, and they ask you to go sit down 30 minutes for observation. So we go sit down, and we're waiting. That's when I notice one of the nurses has me and my sister's passports in his hand, and is walking up to us. He comes over, and he says, how old are you guys? I say, I'm 15. My sister says 13. He says, you guys are too young to have gotten this vaccine in Vietnam. You have to be 18 or older. However, since it's already in you, we can't take it out. So we're going to need you to wait another 45 minutes so we can make sure you don't die. So I'm like, all right. And so we go sit back down and wait. Now we're waiting. And 15 minutes into that wait period, he comes up again. He says, actually, we're going to go finally take our lunch break so you guys can leave. I'm like, all right. And so we walk out that door, being some of the first kids vaccinated and having the treasure running through our veins.
When Nora told that story the first time, and we'll keep it in this room, but we confessed to Nora that Mrs. Sochua and I, sort of when we got our vaccines, we were one of the first in Portland to get it, because we said, we teach at school and we're on the front lines, and we just didn't say what age students we taught. We just said, we're teachers, and yes, the sweet, sweet vaccine, getting it, that was amazing. So, one other person helping us tonight, I have, oh my goodness, I said I was going to cry at some point tonight. I'm not going to cry. But this is a student I have known pretty much since the first day I got this job at Grant High School. Lily Lovett is a graduate of Grant from 2014 and is here helping us out as our math genius tonight. And Lily likes pepperoni and jalapenos on Lily's pizza. Woo! That is a mouthful. Now, our final storyteller also likes some really interesting pizza toppings. Pesto versus red sauce, but it must have mozzarella. Please welcome to the microphone, Liliana.
Okay, so like many people, I have a dog, and I love my dog a lot. So I talk about her a lot. And one of my favorite things to do when I introduce my dog is to say, my dog has 3 legs, but she came with 4. And it always gets the funniest reaction of people, because they're always like, is she okay? Are you okay? And the answer is, yeah, we could both be doing better though. I got my dog the summer before 7th grade because my mental health wasn't too great, and you know what makes things better? A dog. When we brought her home, I named her Rue after the Hunger Games character because I was really into that series at the time. However, over the course of her Rue's life, she's gone through some really interesting events in a short amount of time. It started when she was about 1 to 2 years old. And we have this mailman in our neighborhood, and he has a very distinguished facial feature, and it's his facial hair. He has these thick gray sideburns that come down his chin, but the hair stops there, and he has no mustache. And so you can always tell it was him from blocks away. And one day he was delivering his mail, as mailmen do, and my mom went out to grab it. Now, this is a good time to mention that Rue was going through a bit of a rebel phase. She liked to run outside the house and just meet new people, see new things, I don't know, but she liked it. And it always caused a lot of stress. And this one particular day, she escaped when my mom opened the door. She ran across the street to where the mailman was now delivering his mail. And she was at the bottom of the staircase, the mailman was at the top. And she was barking and barking, and I will admit, dogs are a high-stress thing for mailmen. So he called it to my mom, who was still outside, and said, "You have 2 seconds to come get your dog." 2 seconds is not a lot of time to get overly excited with a dog, I will admit. So my mom ran across the street as fast as you can. 1 Mississippi, my dog was still barking. 2 Mississippi, she was still there. So the mailman grabbed out this pepper spray, which I didn't even know mailmen carry, and he sprayed it at my dog. And so she ran to the street. And just as luck would have it, a car was coming by. My dog got ran over by a car. This is when I heard the scream. I was inside this entire time. I didn't know what was happening. I went outside, and on my porch in the corner was huddled this little bundle of fur, shaking, whimpering, bloody. That makes it sound a lot more dramatic, but she was bloody. And my mom was not in the right headspace witnessing this to drive us to the Lewis downtown pet hospital. So I grabbed my dog, I went to my across the street neighbor, I said, "Can you please, please, please drive us to the hospital?" And she did. And along the way there, I was panicking because there was this little dog on me, and I've only had her for a few years, and I was supposed to be taking care of her. She was fine. She got diagnosed with a ruptured bladder and some scratches. She still had 4 legs until about 6 months later. I was at home with my sister alone. My parents and my dog were on a walk, and when I get a call, and I pick up the phone and I answer it, and my mom was saying, "Hey, we got into an accident. We'll be back later." Hours go by. Me and my sister are still hanging out at home, having the time of our lives. I love being home alone. I don't love not knowing whether my dog is okay or not. They come home, I think around 8 p.m. They left at like 2. And there was my dog. She looked sad again. She always looks sad these days. And her leg was mangled, her back leg. What had happened to my dog? It turned out she got attacked by another one on this hike. This dog was trained to hunt possums. And I will admit, my dog had a possum-like structure. There's this Chihuahua Terrier mix. She's about 12, 15 pounds, this big. Yeah, I don't blame the dog for that. But we didn't know what she was doing. Days go by, and she's not looking great. Her leg still looks bad. It smells horrible. We take shifts sitting on the couch watching her. It was not a fun experience. And so we made the decision that we should go get her leg amputated. It was going to be better for all of us. We drove out to Gresham, and we dropped her off. We came back home and just waited. It was a horrible 24 hours of waiting. When we went back, she came into our car. There she was. She had this cone of shame around her. She had her leg was gone, and in place was no hair. It was shaved. It was weird looking. But she was back, and that was wonderful. I was never more grateful to have my dog back. She's like the light of my life. And I'm just so glad we all got through that in one piece. Well, more like mostly in one piece.
It's like when you read those books when you're a kid, like, does the dog die at the end? No, the dog is okay. Whew, I'm so happy to hear that. Well, now that we have heard from all of our storytellers, our math genius and timekeeper are going to go crunch the numbers and see who our winner and runner-up will be. And I thought while they were doing that, I would just share some thoughts on the theme of treasure. So I started off the evening by saying I really wasn't sure if this event was going to become a reality. And storytelling is something that I treasure so much. I got asked earlier in the school year, one of the Grant magazine staff members came by and wanted to know, they might have even interviewed Alec as well, asking us, what is it like, the life of a librarian? And one of the questions I was asked was, what's been the thing that has surprised you the most about your job? And I had to think a little bit, and I said, you know, it's probably been the literary gifts that my students have given to me through these events that we have in the library. So we do a couple of different things. We have Poetry Out Loud, which is an event where students are given an anthology of poems. They select some, memorize it, and then they're judged on their performance of it. We have our story slam, and then we have our poetry slam at the end of the year. And I have just received so much from my students, and it's been the kind of thing where it's always been what I needed at just the right time. I remember last year we had a student who recited a poem called In by Andrew Hudgens, and I'm not sure if any of y'all have ever heard that poem. I had never heard it, and that's one of the gifts. Like, poetry's not really my thing. I feel like I have to whisper that, sorry. I totally support it, but I don't really read it a lot on my own, and this student had found this poem and was reciting it, and didn't quite know what was going on in this poem. And the gift it gave to me was being able to tell her, let me give you the background of what is going on in this poem, because here's the first few lines. When we first heard from blocks away the fog truck's blustery roar, we dropped our toys, leapt from our meals, and scrambled out the door into an evening briefly fuzzy. We yearn to be transformed, translated past confining flesh to disembodied spirit. And it goes on to say, you know, like, we're swarming after this fog truck. She has no idea what this is. And I was like, oh, let me relive a childhood memory for you, which was, if you can believe it, I don't know if this was just something that happened in the South, and I'm going to kind of just scan the people who are near my age to see, did this happen in your part of the country? But y'all won't believe this, but when I was younger, my parents thought that it was perfectly fine to send the children out the door when this truck that would drive around at the start of the summer, releasing bug spray into the atmosphere. You were to head outside and follow the, oh, I've got head nods, I love it, my people. You were to follow the truck and be doused in this cloud so that you would be immune to the mosquito bites for the rest of the summer. And this student could not understand, like, well, I chose this poem, it seemed interesting because here's the last few lines. The white clouds tumbled down our streets, pursued by spellbound children who chased the most distorted clouds, ecstatic in the poison. And I thought, oh my goodness, that was how we were. We just loved chasing after this thing. And so I was sort of relating this to the Grant student, like, here's this treasure that I've got. Poetry, stories, and then I think, oh, tonight I have had this treasure trove of stories where we got to learn what was something that you treasured. Sweets, reading glasses, a lost cat, a three-legged dog, music, vaccines, your front teeth, roller coaster rides, and pulling the perfect prank. So I really thank all of you for participating tonight and really making this a treasured memory for 2023. Now it's photo taking time, so I'm going to have all my storytellers come up, stand behind the microphone, and we will get out our cameras and take a photo. Everybody else can get a photo. I know, but we need one. I know, I mean, where is my phone? I keep leaving things everywhere. All right, sorry, I didn't forget this.
The only time you get to see another tear.
All right, so this year, our winner, who will be going on to the district Story Slam that's happening at Lincoln High School in 2 weeks, is Nora Lewis. storytellers because I said I love giving prizes and I want to reward all of our storytellers for being here tonight. And as I do that, ooh, Molly, sorry. There's Molly and Tessa. So, we have been really blessed by our community partnerships. Our winners are getting prizes from Broadway Books, and our storytellers are getting gift cards from Blind Onion Pizza. National Pizza Day. Thanks so much to Blind Onion for giving us those treats, and thanks to Broadway Books for rewarding our winner and runner-up with gift cards to their store. And thank you so much for y'all coming out tonight and being a great audience for these storytellers. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.